Hi, I'm Corey Nathan, and this is Talking Politics and Religion Without Killing Each Other. Your home for edifying, provocative, and fun conversations among high-profile public figures and regular folks like me. We talk about faith and politics and all kinds of topics that really matter in our culture. So if you're tired of all the screamers out there taking all the oxygen out of the room and you want to join us in taking some of that space back, you'll love talking politics and religion without killing each other. Thanks for spending some time with us. Enjoy today's show. Welcome. This is a special episode of Matt Lewis and the News and Talking Politics and Religion Without Killing Each Other. I'm your host, Corey Nathan. It's so cool to be with Matt Lewis. Matt, how you doing, man?
Hey, Corey. Always great.
Yeah. So this is, you could tell that I'm super excited because I'm excited to welcome to the program John Popper, widely known as one of the greatest harmonica players in the world. I think of him as the Charlie Parker of blues harp, a singer, songwriter, frontman for the band that many of my family and friends can attest is arguably my favorite band of all time. And definitely one I've seen more than live, more than any other band, Blues Traveler. John Popper, thank you so much for taking the time. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we could do this.
Yeah.
And thanks for saying Charlie Parker. I don't know if there's ever going to be another Charlie Parker.
No.
That guy was special.
Well, I just thought he kind of reinvented jazz. He hit the reset button on jazz.
He did. I'd say he and Dizzy together because Dizzy really what was more of a stable. Bird didn't think as much. He was he just had that intuition to follow it, and he would take it to places that were just absolutely amazing and bizarre. And yeah, he did. I don't even think just jazz. I think he his approach to harmonies and playing variations off of harmonies was groundbreaking for music.
Yeah. So those were largely your influences, more so than say other, or were you influenced by just everything, just blues?
Well, what's funny is that actually what really influenced me, I would say it was kind of 2 points in my life. I wanted to be a comedian. I was really into comedy and Saturday Night Live. And I was just good enough to know that I wasn't quite funny enough, like it's right there. But that's how I saw the Blues Brothers. And so that really got me into wanting to play the harmonica. Something about that spoke to me. And I remember, was it Annie Leibovitz or Fran Leibovitz, the photographer? She was on David Letterman and she was talking about taking that picture of Jake and Elwood, where their faces are painted blue. And she was trying to get them away from, they were being all serious musicians and people kept saying Dan was like Paul Butterfield and she wanted to get them back to their comedy. And all I was thinking is, who's Paul Butterfield? So I go to I'm in Princeton, New Jersey. I'm a kid in high school and Princeton has this great record exchange. It's one of these great old record stores. I think it's still there. But there was a briefcase full of blues. But I went and I looked for Paul Butterfield and I found his live double album. And the first night I heard, I was so blown away. He was the first harmonica that really, in my mind, took it melodically away from just the traditional kind of harp playing. And I went to actually kiss the record. I was so happy that I found this record. I dropped it on the floor and broke it. But luckily it was a double album. So I played Drifting and Drifting off that album. Every morning I would get up, it was like reveille, and I would just play the harp solo from that. And I would learn that incessantly. And then someone showed me Sugar Blue. I got to go and meet him and actually see him play. And he was the first harp player I'd seen go up high on the harmonica like that. And so, I had 5 gin and tonics, I was in high school. I walked out of there totally sober and started to go to work on that harmonica. But it was the Blues Brothers led me to the old blues guys like Elmore James. Paul Butterfield led me to Elmore. He was doing an Elmore James song on his album. And that led me to the old blues guys like Johnny Lee Hooker, Muddy Waters. This was all a huge revelation for me. But eventually, somehow, this all led me to Jimi Hendrix. And that was when I knew that I was going to be a musician when I heard Jimi Hendrix. That kind of put the nail in the coffin on anything else but being a musician. There was something about Voodoo Child, the long one with Steve Winwood, and then the short one, Voodoo Child's Slight Return is what everyone thinks of when they think of Voodoo Child.
Yeah.
Those songs, there's some way that he would use his guitar that it sounded like the environment around you. It sounded like a storm was happening. And he was really great at having this all-encompassing, it was like the Doppler effect. He used that really well. And that was something that I could kind of emulate on the harmonica. And for me, it didn't matter that he was playing the guitar and I was playing the harmonica. I think the point of Hendrix was, I don't care what I'm playing. I just have these sounds I need to get out. And that was really who I started ripping off as much as I could, certainly spiritually and as much melodically as I could. And from Hendrix, that led me out to all directions. Suddenly I could appreciate jazz. I could get into Miles Davis after Jimi Hendrix. I get into Coltrane, and that wound up being a huge influence as well. But Charlie Parker was definitely, as far as jazz went, kind of the rock that shattered the expectations and broke new ground and made it possible to go into new places. And I think that's what Coltrane was doing. And I think that's what everyone who followed him was doing. And in our high school, we had this big band.
Mr. B.
Yes, Mr. B and all that stuff. And so that really, you were forced to be hearing these old big band numbers, which were really actually some of the best written songs that America's produced. So, it was actually wound up being kind of a rich little musical bit of catching up I did, because I really wasn't into music until I was a teenager. And even I was a little late to that then. And so after that, I really did have a lot of catching up to do, but my approach to music was probably a little more innocent, I want to say. I couldn't grasp genres and what was cool and stuff. All of these things were, 20 years old by the time I got to them. Mm-hmm. I remember, even though we tried working with her, I sort of discovered Ani DeFranco's music in like the 2000s. I'm always late to the party. Tom Waits, I loved him in like the same time, wow, who's this Tom Waits guy? And I'm listening to music songs from like the 70s. And, I was never really on time when it came to influences. But I like a fine wine.
Speaking of you were an influence on us, on Nathan and I, and
thanks.
The way that we ended up meeting you on Twitter was I used to play in a band that played some Blues Traveler covers, and Nathan, that's what prompted Nathan to tweet you. And I wanted to see if you would listen to you would listen to like maybe 10 or 15 seconds of a couple songs and give me your honest, unvarnished opinion.
Here we go.
This is the Backyard Apples is the name of the band.
You can totally hear the Popper influence, right?
Yeah.
Not bad.
Even in the voice, right?
That's you can cut that one now, Nathan. I don't know if you want to play the other one. But,
was that you singing?
No, that's not me singing. And I'm playing bass on that song. A guy named George Spiegel wrote that one.
But this is the one that you're playing steel guitar,
I'm playing guitar on this one, lead guitar.
Okay.
There you go. Total Popper influence.
David Lance on blues harp.
That's awesome.
Thank you for indulging me. How bad were we?
Tell David I said he's good. You can hear him wanting to go up and get all intricate up in the high stuff, and I hear his he wants to be melodic. So like that's the right instinct.
Yeah.
It's something that Taj Mahal told me is he said that, being a melodic harmonica player is something that people forget to do all the time. He's a great example of one as well. He's a really great harp player because he doesn't sound like, I think in the 80s, I was getting really sick of what a traditional harmonica was supposed to sound like, which is basically, which is certainly nice, but there's more it can do.
I noticed on the last album, the one that came out last summer, that you got back to like more of a traditional blues harp.
I love how they say back to, because we were never there in the first place. That's what always album. This is the album that took us 35 years to finally make. Like we were always railing against a traditional blues moniker. We were always trying to, like, if you will, travel from it. Like, I think that was the point.
I noticed that in the early days that the reason that I was more drawn to you guys than say the Black Crowes or even your buddy Chris Barron's band was that you were playing with a lot of different stuff. You were changing keys, you were changing time signatures.
Oh, yeah. Part of that helped having a bass player who was slightly dyslexic, but and really had trouble counting, and he wasn't used to any of the traditional things. Like the hardest thing for Bobby to play was because a traditional arrangement like that was not in his headspace. He was a complete deadhead, tripping balls when he was really young. So like his sense of symmetry and counting was askew, but his approach to like would be like and he'd start taking that for a ride. And like I'm trying to tell him, no, that's the cue for the end of the song.
So you were jam band by necessity almost.
Well, yeah, very liberating rhythmically. Actually, it blew my head open literally because I was trying to keep up. I was trying to count, and he made it impossible to count. So then you were forced to kind of find it. And there was something about that stumbling and falling. We would be going through 15/8 time signatures or 7/4 all the time, and you know it. The thing is, if you knew it, it would mess it up. But like what he kind of got me to do, and it was helpful, was sort of unlearn the stuff. I think it's important to learn it first and then try and forget it. It's a weird, counterintuitive thing you got to do. But it was that combination. Mr. B had been training Brendan and me to be very musically aware of what we're doing, or, trying to anyway. And Chan and Bob somehow were rejected by the Princeton music program. Like, I think he wrote them off as, shiftless stoners.
But Chan was a football player. He was buff, man.
Yeah, but he hung out at the Arch and was smoking weed and, get drunk and stuff like, they were troublemakers, Yeah. And they weren't band nerds. Well, Brendan and I were band nerds. So we were embraced by our music program, and especially playing an instrument that, there wasn't any real formal training for. Like I wasn't, Mr. B tried to get me to play the trumpet, but I was terrible. And there was no harmonica teacher. So that really freed it up for me. I'd plug into the bass amp, with the bass player. And I had a little tape recorder mic that I stuck into a plunger so I could fit the harp in the plunger and it would hold it. And I called that my harmonica mic. And basically he couldn't tell me what to do. It was great. I just sort of sat there and then he'd point to me.
So he didn't throw cymbals at you like in the movie?
No. I remember him throwing a cymbal.
Whiplash.
He plugged anybody, but he would have loved that image. He would have loved the reputation for doing that.
So, John.
Yeah.
So the blues harp player I played with started off as like a pianist, and he literally learned to play off of it was like a cassette tape and a pamphlet called something like How to Play Harmonica.
Yeah.
Have you ever run across? Apparently it's really good.
I've played that. I remember the guy's name who did it. It was there are several books like that were out at the time, and they were very helpful. And
it's amazing, right, that you could buy something like that.
The little pamphlet that comes in your harmonica with you, it's take your honer with a finger at each end, hold it with pride, it will be a friend. Like there was a little poem that came with it that showed you how to play. And it's useful. There's little arrows that point up if you're supposed to exhale and down if you're supposed to inhale, but nobody can see the holes and the numbers while they're playing, so you ultimately are feeling your way. And that's what's really great. It's an instrument of low expectation because you can really play like Alanis Morissette and people think that you're great. But, I remember that One Hand in My Pocket song she does. Mm-hmm. You can, as a harmonica player, I can hear two things. One, she's managed to fit just about the entire harmonica in her mouth at once. when she does that hard exhale, she's breaking a reed. I can hear her breaking the reed every time.
It gives new meaning to your famous quote, harmonica is like life. Sometimes you suck and sometimes you blow.
Well, sometimes you blow. But,
Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit about politics. And one of my favorite videos, not just my favorite Blues Traveler videos, but one of my favorite like 90s videos is Hook. And it seemed to me like you were really capturing this Citizen Kane thing, the imagery there.
Well, that was an idea. I think that was, we wanted to show all the different hypocrisies of language, and a politician is a great one. Politicians are known for saying stuff that somehow convinces you, but we never believe a word they say. Like, you kind of know it's territory. And basically, writing Hook, I find in my old age that people have come to discover that song sort of over again. And the less I say about it, the more like J.D. Salinger I seem, I'm like,
every time I hear it, though, at the end of the song, when you're sort of, I don't want to call it rapping, but you're singing very sort of scat. Right. I always think that you could have put in some dirty stuff very easily.
Well, a lot of people thought "I Want to Burn All of Your Cities to the Ground" was something about the titties.
I didn't say it, but every time I heard the song,
especially after Bust Balloons, there should be a reference to titties, but no, that's not what I was doing. I was more concerned with destruction than sex. Wait,
You do talk in the book about not wanting to like deprive someone of their interpretation of your song.
Yeah.
There was one story you told about a guy who came on the band's bus. He was about to kill himself, and then he just listened to, I think it was Just Wait, and decided that to give his life to Jesus, as he talked about.
He was going to. He said he sat down with like a brick of heroin and was going to just fix until he just drifted on out, and that was his plan. And then he heard Just Wait and saw a picture of his family, and then gave his life to Jesus, which is kind of scary because now he's trying to like blame all that on me. Like, he did it. He decided not to die.
Right.
So him, like, and I pointed out, you saved your life. You used me as an image or a symbol to go by, or, you took the words of my song and they meant something to you, but what they meant to you was his. Right. I didn't tell him, don't die, and give him lots of great advice. I was singing about a completely other situation, which I would tell you, except then everybody's going to go, oh, that's what it's about.
It's too much pressure in a way. Like you've become his Jesus.
The people that come up with meanings for the song sometimes come into things that I wasn't even thinking of. And I'm like, wow, that's really good. Now with Hook, I was thinking of, basically what people are talking about. And I thought Pachelbel was kind of a catchy thing and that kind of got me writing about a hook, like which came first. But to tell you the truth, I wrote it when I was on the toilet and I had a dripping faucet and I was humming Pachelbel's Canon. And I was like, hey, this is good with a backbeat. And I was like, oh, this is something. And I actually was trying to write I was thinking more melodic than anything when I started writing it. I was thinking, that Police song, I think it's again, oh no, I can't remember the name of that song, but it's that Police song. And
Can't Stand Losing You. Is that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can't Stand It. Thank you. And the first phrase in that first lyric was kind of what I was thinking of phrasing Hook. Like the lyrics on the verse. And then another aspect is my brother. He's I got 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and my older brother was saying, you put too many words in your verses. You got to like space them out more. So I did the first 2 verses the way he wanted, and then I did a 3rd verse where I over crammed it and just put in everything, but including the kitchen sink. And again, because this was Pachelbel, it fit very well to just do that in the fast part. And I was trying to like over syncopate it as much as I could, just to kind of show him like I can do it your way and my way. And that wound up becoming a bridge. And I remember the first thing Mike Barbiero, my producer, said when he heard it, he said, it's very self-aware. The song's very aware of itself. And that definitely, I think with Hook, it's definitely talking about the writing of that song, which is about the writing of that song. And I've just been amazed by how people you give them like 20 years and suddenly everybody's running with that. And I like it.
Yeah.
Basically, I just try to say less so I seem intelligent.
So I do need to ask you a politics, more on the nose.
Sure.
In the book, you talk about, you're socially liberal, but fiscally.
I'm basically a libertarian, but, I was at a Ron Paul rally in 2013. I might have told this story in the book too, but they were, it's like I saw what a mob looks like when libertarians generally are indifferent about pro-choice, pro-life. They leave that up to the individual to decide. So in essence, they're pro-choice historically.
But that crowd wasn't that when you
well,
told
it's
us.
because Ron Paul has this cult of personality going because he is such a force in the libertarian movement. He's pushed them into being pro-life. And it was really more his personal opinion that they had to back up because he was the guy running this. And they had a pro-choice libertarian come on stage, and he was being horribly booed. Like it was as though it felt like Munich in the 30s. It was, and this is a guy who's not just he's not a Democrat. He's not a communist. He's not a fascist. He's not even a Republican. He's a libertarian with one slightly differing view. And he said, maybe you could consider libertarianism an anti-choice party if you consider it from the mother's point of view as a property rights issue. Boo, you should die. We should kill it. Like, I was worried for his safety.
Wow. Were you performing, or were you just?
I went there I was there supporting Ron. I was thinking, these are my people. I'm a libertarian. But at that moment, I realized as soon as you have people, that's where the trouble starts. And I started backing away. I will always be a libertarian, but I'm going to be my own kind of libertarian, which is the entire point of being a libertarian. Now, the problem with libertarians is that they tend to sort of idealize a utopian ideal, which is, what if there were no rules? And what if people didn't need permits? You can take this to absurd points where, like, there shouldn't be driver's licenses. We don't need that. I think that I'm just not a joiner. I tend to root for the non-Trump Republicans in an argument because nobody's rooting for them. I tend to really be an advocate. When the Republicans start taking control and start talking about God and school and stuff like that, or, critical race theory, I start cringing. I start being like, you're now making an issue where there isn't an issue. But then when Democrats start talking about, all we need is $30 trillion and we can have a perfectly engineered society, that makes me cringe as well. So, I guess what winds up happening is that the parties that are fighting each other now, I tend not to regard. I see them as a momentary thing.
So you should start the Shriverian Party. How do you pronounce it?
Another party on my, that's what happens. Then you split into so many different factions that nothing ever gets done. And then nobody has any power. So, I think that humans are binary. We need a us and a them. So I think the two-party system for that reason makes sense to me. But this last election, I did vote for the Libertarian, but I knew I was throwing my vote away. But I couldn't vote for Trump. And I just didn't have it in me to vote for Biden either. And, neither of those guys have disappointed.
That's true.
I voted for nobody. I said none of these clowns. That was my write-in.
That's funny.
And then I tried voting for the Libertarian, but it was really a cop-out on my part. I'm not picking a side because both of the sides are kind of terrible.
But in Washington State, you can almost afford to be idealistic in that way and do a vote in conscience. If you were in, say, Wisconsin or Arizona,
I would feel a lot more pressure to have to really just swallow something. Yeah. And I probably would have voted for Biden, but I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't, because there's something about the Democrats that's really problematic for me, as far as they want no fiscal responsibility is really as important as their agenda. and the progressive side of the party has just really gotten crazy. Now, I used to think I was original in that thought, but I think everybody is kind of bashing wokeness.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they can call it wokeness already means that the term for wokeness isn't what it meant previously. It used to mean that, are you aware of other people's conditions besides your own? And now it's come to mean, you wear this and you do that and you believe this. It suddenly defines you now.
There's like an orthodoxy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's a dogma to, wokeness. And that's, every dogma to me is my enemy. I am not a fan of dogma.
I think it used to be like creative. Sorry, Corey. I think it used to be like creative people who, by and large, didn't like the right because it was like the Christian coalition or, trying to shut down. But now it's the left that's like censoring like comedy and maybe even music. Like,
yeah. Oh, try being a comedian at a college campus. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's really sad. I understand that there are people who've been marginalized, forever. And that matters to them. And that's important to recognize. And you don't want to make anyone feel bad. But, speaking as a white hetero man, you got to laugh at yourself. Like, we all come from a ridiculous place. The mere act of putting on clothes reveals how silly and insecure and dumb we are. But I'm glad there's clothes because I'm silly and insecure and dumb, a human being.
So you kind of alluded to this already, but you have spiritual thought running through all of your music. I mean, a lot of folks point to, what is it, Trina Magna, but that whole album, actually, the whole Save the Soul album. But I always looked at Optimistic Thought as that was one of my favorite sort of spiritual songs. But where's your spiritual beliefs now?
Hangover song to me. It's like, ooh, whatever I did, I'm sorry. And now I know, at least right that what's right and what's wrong in my heart anyway. But as for last night, well, you live in, I will disgrace you, but forgive if I replace you. But, I was going through something.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the idea of that song. But thank you for saying that.
So where's your spiritual belief? Has having a daughter changed kind of where your head's at spiritually, like in terms of spiritual thoughts?
A little more weight to my own opinions, because now I see her getting it. Like the level that she and I, she gets absurdist humor, really quickly. The other day, she's 6 and she said, I'd like to say a few words. Handlebars, balloon. And that's just her. Like, that's the thing. She's got comic timing already. And so now I've kind of, she seems to reflect a lot of my inherent opinions while still, she's with her mom and she's going to a very progressive school. But she knows how to laugh at herself. So, I kind of hope that's the balance of both. If she has that awareness and sensitivity, but can also see the absurdity and just even trying to form ideas, there's a certain amount of humility you need to approach it with. And I'm hoping that's what she comes up with. But again, she's 6, so I'm not trying to cram any of or interpret her opinions too much because, she has a right to them. I don't want to get, hold her to too much stuff. Remember when you were 6, you said you believed this.
John, could you talk a little bit? So I'm a writer at the Daily Beast and do some cable news punditry. And I've been around long enough to see just a little taste of notoriety, and to also see like how you can be up in the industry and then they can drop you. And I'd love to hear your sort of take on fame and the industry and how you have like ridden that roller coaster.
Well, we've managed to create something of a middle class of rock and roll. Like on years when the touring industry is down, we do okay. And then on years when everybody's going great guns, we do okay. Like we're always there. We've been steadily working. I checked, and in 2020, when we had to stop for a year, Had the last time we had a break like that was 1986, and we were in high school still. So that means every single year for 34 of those 35 years, we've been working a lot on the road. Like there's always been a lot of gigs. Even when we were starting out, we were gigging a lot in the city. We would do like 5 gigs a week. And we've pretty much maintained that. And the result is that we're not hurting for money, but we got to go and get it. We have to go and scrap for it.
But there's some bands that do, they have like fame and then they just bottom out. Maybe it's drugs, or maybe they just didn't have the talent or the fan base.
I mean, that stuff happened to us too. Bob Sheehan passing away was definitely a blow to the band, and like a pivotal change in our sound, in our thinking, and as a family. He had a very serious problem, but so did I. I was 436 pounds, and food was my drug of choice, and we both had each other to go, well, I'm not as bad as you.
Right.
The band intervention had to miss Red Rocks in '99 because I was 95% blocked in my artery, and the intervention was it was Brendan and Chan coming to me and saying, we're really worried about Bobby. And he showed up 2 hours late for the intervention, and he didn't look good. And that was the last time I saw him alive. Mm-hmm. And, dude, you got to get your shit together. And that was really, after you have a heart thing, like they gave me angioplasty, and there's a weird thing where you go through a depression, like it's kind of chemically, but also to have your best friend pass away, there's a real sense of this just inevitable doom that's coming your way, and you really feel like you're going to die. And my instinct was, I don't want to die. And Chan and his wife, Serena, at the time, they found the gastric bypass operation. They researched it for me and they found it. I was like, yes, I'll do it. And what I wasn't expecting is that it would work, because Bobby and I always kind of expected we would like make a huge impact and then die young, like Jimi Hendrix. And when he died, I remember staring at my Jimi Hendrix poster and thinking that I'm nowhere near that black and white. It's about the gray. That's where the courage is. A friend of mine told me that, and it really the courage is in living with the gray. Now, to your point about celebrity, I still am in a bit of denial. Like as soon as I think nobody knows who I am, everybody seems to. And then as I think everybody knows who I am, nobody seems to. And that's really how you have to live your life. And I'm glad that I've never had a Britney Spears kind of fame where I really am instantly recognizable around the world, or Brad Pitt or something like that, because then you really have trouble going off and finding some peace. But, I can go to the DMV and, I remember I was actually at the DMV once, and this girl is whispering to her mom, and I catch them and they're like, sorry, you look just like it. I said, no, that's me. And they're like, right. And they didn't believe me. And it was one time I was getting my license made. I didn't have my driver's license. So I couldn't prove it. Like the mom over there, and I'm like, see? And she's like, oh, I don't care.
That's hilarious. But it is funny you mentioned about the gray areas. I have to tell you, like, there are sometimes just as a writer where like I'll write something that I think is really good, and then there's a lot, because I have to write 3 columns a week. There are days where I write something and I'm not inspired to write it, but I know I have to. And to be honest with you, I'm sometimes more proud of the piece that I wrote that turned out to be fine, because that means I'm a professional. If I can write without a great idea, that's a professional.
This is a conversation in your own head. People will be inspired by stuff you didn't realize was inspiring to them, because to you it wasn't inspiring. And that's a really important distinction. I learned that early on about playing music. An amateur, after he plays, someone will go, hey, you did a great job. You go, are you kidding? I fucked this up. I fucked that up. I messed this up. And I was late on bar 5. And they're like, oh, sorry. But a professional just goes and just shuts the hell up, because people don't know what's going through your head. And that's not what they want to, they're not really trying to know that much of your process. They're seeing the good stuff. And if you do work and you're not inspired, you still have to do it. And that professional, I've felt that way too, where like the show must go on and you can at least keep it together to have other people have a good time. They're going to find something in there that you didn't see. You know, to this day, I still have auditory hallucinations when I'm playing in front of a crowd where you'll hear, like I'm imagining I'm hearing something, oh, you messed that up. Oh, there's that thing. I swear to God, I'll hear somebody in the crowd saying that. And then when you actually do get heckled, it's such a different experience because it's funny then. Like, you know, it goes by in like a second and they're like, yeah, you suck. And you're like, thank you. Somehow it like snaps you into wanting to do it, to keep going because at least they heard you.
Yeah.
So there's something about that you'll never find peace. You will never be satisfied as a writer, and you're not supposed to be. That's what Jerry Garcia said. If I was ever satisfied, I'd quit. And I still am close to getting it right, but I still haven't nailed it, in my opinion.
That sounds like Jim Leland talked about when he should stop managing baseball. And he said, when the losses don't hurt as much as the elation of winning.
Never. That's what he's really saying, because he loves it. He loves so it will always hurt. Yeah. Even games he's not managing, though, the team he's rooting for, where he understands, you know, they've got this chance, and if they miss that chance and he's not even involved, it's going to bug him just as a baseball professional, and he can't get away from that. That's what it is. Our job, like I look at it like I would have been unsatisfied anyway. But if I've got a band and I can do something about it, at least I'll be unsatisfied while I'm trying to do something.
Right. I was curious about your process. You know, you've been with the same guys, Chan and Brendan, for, you know, since high school. Is your process different with those guys? You know, obviously, you know, the rest of the band too. Chan's little brother. He's probably in his 40s now. But
yes. I think he's like 39 or something. We'll say he's in his late 30s just for his sake.
Is your process different with them versus when you're jamming with, say, Dusk Gray, Troubadours, or?
Totally. You know, like I was saying about Bobby, he wasn't formally trained, and that became part of our language, communicating with each other. So when I'm playing with the band, I know how to communicate with them through like grunts and squeaks that are very elaborate. We have our own elaborate language that we formed on our own. So it's a lot different. If I was like, all right, let's get a song going. We have our process, and it's a slower one, but a more thorough one. And within that, we find a lot of opportunities for cool stuff that we wouldn't have otherwise come to. It's like you accidentally do things in 15/8, and people are like, wow, how rhythmically complex. And it's like the only way we knew how to get from here to there. And so like our editing process, I think as a band has evolved. So it was changing the whole time, and it still is. But when I go and work with, you know, professionals, like there's a side band and they're supposed to know my song and I'm like Chuck Berrying it. I can talk musical lingo with them because the whole time I've been going and sitting in with people. What I'm really excited about now is Chan, who's completely sober, is like a motherfucker again on the guitar. And he's going, and I always told him this for years, you're in LA, you need to go sit in with side bands, because not only does it make you better, it makes us better. You're going to bring that to the band. And he was always saying, well, I got kids. But I think there was a point where he sort of didn't have the confidence. And now he's out in LA with this band. Oh, I'm trying to remember what they're called. Like Warhorse Circus, I think, or something like that, like some cool name. And they're a power trio. And I've been hearing him play lately. We just did a run of 3 gigs. He's like on fire, and he's coming up with new stuff that's like mind blowing. And that's pushing me. I'm like, oh shit, I can't just give the same old shtick. I got to like evolve here.
That's awesome.
And it makes you like try and keep up with him. And that's what I do to him. And that's what we do to each other. And it becomes an infectious, it's like the herpes you want to catch. You know, it's like.
I thought there was a non-monogamy argument going on here with this.
Very much.
Don't
be monogamous with your band. What you need is a wife who will let you go off and orgy, and she goes off in orgies, and you know, in artistic circumstances, that is what you want. You want everybody fucking everybody and just jizz all over the mess. And you know, I think metaphorically, that's what you're looking for.
That's
so
awesome.
Corey, is that a first for your I think we got a couple great sound bites so far for your
I think
podcast.
so. Yeah. So, okay. So I'd be absolutely remiss if I didn't ask a question on behalf of my brother, who was a bass player, and then he heard you. We started going to your gigs, Blues Traveler gigs. This is like '88, I want to say. Yeah. So my brother put down the bass and he picked up the harp because of you. So
I'm sorry. I would like to apologize to you first and foremost, and all of your friends.
So since we're getting explicit, I got to ask on behalf of Eddie, tongue blocker or lip purser?
Both.
Okay, we had a bet. I thought both. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'll use the tongue block when I'm getting a nice chord with a Leslie, and if I'm playing chords and things, that's usually when I tend to tongue block. But if I'm going individual notes, I was always a lip piercer. What did you call it? A lip
Purser.
Yeah, lip purser. I was that guy. So generally when I'm doing single notes, that would be where I go to, but I've used both and still do, because you don't know what is called for. Like, you want a nice ninth chord, tongue blocking is the way to do it. And you can play tongue blocking as melodically. You get a little blister on your tongue, but hey,
Yeah.
I think the main thing is you got to keep your lips moist here, or you're going to cut them. That's why I like special 20s. The marine bands, that wood chunks turns into a saw if they swell. And, I like to move them around fast. Any other questions you need answered?
Yeah, we're running out of time. We got to keep it tight.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you for joining us. This is awesome.
Thank you for having me. And I'd love to do this again sometime. You guys
That would be
really
awesome.
Let's do it.
So you have some dates coming up. You want to share some dates so we can pimp you?
Yes, I know this summer we're on tour with Train and Jewel.
I'll be seeing you in Irvine. Yeah, we already got our tickets. So
we're basically going everywhere. And then before that, I think starting May 3rd in Rochester, New York. I think it's May 6th is Rochester. So we're doing a gig in Times Square. I don't know if that's for the public or not, in like May 4th. So basically, once May rolls around, start looking for us. We'll
check out Blues Traveler. It's just bluestraveler.com, right? So you can check it out. Yeah, on the site there. So, well, this was awesome, Popper. I what a treat, man. The last time we did talk, but it was in, I want to say, the fall of 1988 at Chestnut Cabaret. It was about 3 in the morning. You guys opened for the Radiators, and then you came on and jammed with they call him Fishhead, I think is his nickname. The keyboard player and singer for Radiators. So you came on, but then afterwards you hung out and you were at a table and you offered me a tape. I guess it was a recording of the show that night. And I didn't have even $5 to scrape together to buy that tape off you. So
nice. Did I give it to you at least?
No.
I wouldn't. I'm a bastard. Wow. What if you have $5 tape?
Well, I hope we don't wait 30 something years to talk again. This was an absolute treat, Popper. I'm so grateful that you came on and joined us.
What I'm going to do, whether I win or lose the Grammy, right after the Grammys.
What are you going to do if you win or lose the Grammys?
I'm going to Disneyland. I'm literally taking my daughter from Vegas. We're driving straight to Disney for a week. So I figured that'll be a good omen.
That is awesome. Well, so much love to Eloise. Is that how you pronounce her name?
Yeah.
Much love to Eloise. She's a lucky girl to have a dad like you.
Oh, well, let's hope that's true.
Thanks, John. That was awesome. Thank you.
Guys, appreciate it.
You bet.
So what do you think, man?
An absolute thrill. I mean, I wasn't bullshitting when I introduced him as like literally one of, if not my favorite band ever. So getting to talk to Popper is like, I'm still kind of struck about it. Like, just that is so, other than maybe talking to Bruce Springsteen, like,
yeah, people don't realize too. So I started playing in bands like in 93, 94, around that era. And that's when Blues Traveler broke nationally.
Yeah.
And they were like on MTV and VH1. And people nowadays, I don't think realize what it was like to have music videos on MTV, but like if that you were a big deal. I mean, you you weren't just a band. Like if you were on MTV and you were being played like in DC 101 or WHFS was kind of the alternative channel in DC back then. It was huge, and so to get to talk to him is super cool.
Yeah. And so that night that I referred to when they opened for the Radiators, I had to sneak in. I had to get a fake ID. I wasn't 21 yet. And I rode my motorcycle in this like misty rain there. So I probably looked like a ragamuffin, all wet and just strong, just.
And you didn't have $5.
Yeah, I didn't even have $5 to give the guy. It was, but obviously I've been able to afford the albums since then. But yeah, that was.
I'm still not sure if we should have called him John or Popper. And also, I want to note that I referred to you by your last name a couple times. I think in the excitement, I just called you Nathan.
Yeah.
Which I hope you're. But is it John or Popper? And is Nathan okay? I mean.
Yeah, no, I mean, he seemed pretty cool with it. So we always refer to him as Popper. So it was hard for me to call him John. I felt like, his mother would call him John, but
Jonathan. Yeah.
yeah.
Popper.
Like,
and if your name's Popper, that's such a cool name too, right? Like Papa. It's just, it's a great last name. So
yeah.
Okay.
We had a guy. No. Okay, we've already been illicit or explicit in this. So we had a guy that I think he went to. There was a couple guys that we knew that went to Princeton, and that's how we got to know, Popper and Chan and those guys really, really early on. One guy's name was, my brother reminded me. His real name was Phil Philippock, but we called him Philip the Pitcher because he was always filling up the.
Wait, are you going to run? Now, here's a question I have because your podcast is about faith and politics explicitly, but not supposed to be explicit.
Right.
Are you going to beep out? I mean, he dropped some really good. Actually, I would call them sound bites, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Some words to live by, but I don't know. You can put like an explicit rating on this?
I keep the explicit rating on it. Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder if that's stopping us from getting as many downloads as we could otherwise. Because most of our conversations, we're not dropping F-bombs, but I just keep the explicit on there just to feel a little bit more free and for the guests to feel a little bit more free. But yours is probably not. Yours is probably not explicit.
I never
rating.
check it, although. And by the way, I want to see like if the video looks good. Do you mind if I post some of this on YouTube?
Oh, absolutely. Cool? Yeah, I'll share both.
Okay.
Oh, we're still recording.
Oh, that's fine. I think the audience loves this kind of inside. Trust me, they come for this sort of inside information. But so I was gonna say, like, on my podcast, I tend to not have too many bad words, but I don't mark it on the audio podcast. YouTube nowadays is like there's like a 50-point checklist you have to go through.
Oh, wow.
Before you upload something about, and it has to do with monetization. So
okay, on
YouTube, I will have to say foul language or, that kind of thing. But hey, I thought it was good. How do you feel? Because I know, so going in, we didn't know how much time we were going to have with him. We found out right before we recorded that he didn't have much time.
Right.
So,
he gave us 3 times as much time as he initially said. So it must have been.
We had a great conversation.
Yeah.
What was your take on like what we got in terms of we were going in there, definitely wanted to talk politics.
Yeah.
Definitely wanted to talk religion, spirituality.
Yeah.
And definitely both, I think, had some a personal agenda that we both wanted to, we're meeting a celebrity that meant a lot to us. So
he was so cool about when we played the your stuff from when you were a rock and roll star.
Yeah, right.
That was pretty cool. That
I was huge in Martinsburg.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was pretty cool that he gave it a listen and, was encouraging. And so are you going to put the band back together?
No, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this with David Lance, our blues harp player, because, I have to go back and listen, but I think he was fairly complimentary.
Yeah.
And again, Dave was just a great musician, and he started off, I think, like as a pianist or actually playing like an electric organ or something. But he like literally learned to play harmonica off of a cassette tape and a little booklet called How to Play Harmonica.
That's
something
funny.
Like that.
Yeah. Well, this has been a real treat. My wife is texting me, so I probably should attend.
We should get going. Corey, Nathan, thanks for letting me be a part of this, man.
Lewis.
You can call me Al. I don't care.
Yeah, seriously. This was a real highlight for me. So I really appreciate it. And I guess I'll say for both of us, if you dig what conversations like this, hit the subscribe button for both of us. You'll be hearing on Talking Politics and Religion Without Killing Each Other, as well as Matt Lewis in the news. Tell a friend about our stuff. And yeah. And what else do you normally say? Support the program through the Patreon app, I think is what you say.
Patreon.com/Matt Lewis. You know what they could do? Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Matt K. Lewis.
And we are Corey S. Nathan, or TP and R Pod is our.
And you know what? Follow Blues Traveler.
Yeah, absolutely. He might tweet you back. That's how this thing came together.
That's how we met him. People, as much as I hate on Twitter, you can meet people on Twitter. It's a pretty amazing thing.
It really is. So hey,
you were doing it. I mean, like, I've got the pretentious blue check mark that sometimes can get you in the door. You don't have one, right?
I'm
barely. This is not me. Like,
I don't think I even have 1,000 followers yet. So
okay, so this is the point I'm making. I'm not trying to be a jerk. The point I'm making is, like, you could be, for all he knows, you were Joe's six pack, right? I mean, he wasn't. For all he knows, and you were able to talk to. So, like, Twitter is really, that's the one cool thing about it. Still, you can meet like famous people sometimes. Yeah. Just kind of like, I forget how we originally. Oh, our mutual friend Emily, our producer, Emily introduced us. So that was kind of cool. Great. But no, I didn't have an Emily introduce me to Popper. It was just a Twitter thing. He just responded to a Twitter thing. And next thing we know, we're all talking together. So, man, what a treat. Awesome. I really appreciate you, because you could have just taken this and run. And so thank you for letting me be a part of it. Oh, man, it's been cool. So let's you and I make sure that this isn't the last time we hang out, because you never know what can happen. Every time we talk, I have fun. It's always a good conversation. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. And remember, talk some politics and religion with gentleness and respect, and have a great week. Thank you for joining us today. If you dig what we're doing here, it is super easy to follow us. You can go to our site, politicsandreligion.us. That's with the "and" spelled out, A-N-D. Politicsandreligion.us. And we're on all the socials, at TP and R Pod. TP and R Pod for Talking Politics and Religion Pod. And here's a big way you can support us: by becoming one of our patrons. You can even become a producer or executive producer of our program and have a lot more say in who we bring on, the kinds of questions we explore, or just help us keep the lights on. But mostly, we really appreciate you giving us a listen. So for the whole team here at Talking Politics and Religion Without Killing Each Other, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll be back in a few days to do our little part in Tikkun Olam.